Sorry, my name is Nick Kalsi from Cardiff Metropolitan University. My research is based on IoT in practice, investigating the benefits and challenges of IoT adoption for the sustainability of the hospitality sector. So I'll just give you an introduction of the areas that I'll be covering. The main environmental impacts within the hospitality sector. What does the Internet of Things mean for hotels? The 4 layers of IoT, what other hotels are doing using IoT and the benefits, IoT Guest Room management systems, IoT temperature monitoring system, and the security and challenges using IoT in the hospitality sector, and finishing off with a conclusion. Okay, let's take into account the main environmental impacts within the hospitality sector. There are 4 main areas of concern: gas, water, electricity, and waste. Gas, the hospitality sector relies on natural gas and fossil fuels for heating, cooking, and hot water production. The combustion of these fuels releases greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, CO2, and methane. Water, hotels and restaurants require a substantial amount of water for various purposes, such as cleaning, laundry, landscaping, and swimming pools. Guest amenities as showers and so on, where water is used. There is a high water consumption that constrains local resources, especially in various demographic countries, for example, in the Middle East, Africa, and so on. Again, electricity is a high usage of for lighting, heating, cooling, and various applications. Electricity, again, increases the carbon emissions, contributing to global warming and environmental degradation. General waste. The hospitality industry generates a significant amount of waste, including food waste and packaging, paper. Improper waste management can lead to environmental pollution and strain in various disposal systems. So what does the Internet of Things mean for hotels? Kevin Naston quoted in 1999, the Internet of Things describes the network of physical objects, things that are embedded with sensors, software, and technologies for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems over the Internet. So how can IoT help hotels? Conserving water by implementing IoT sensors within the mainstream of incoming of the hotel. This can gauge how much water is used. This can be implemented on sublevels, floors, bathrooms, kitchens, restaurants, and so on. Again, the luxury of having IoT, this means that data can be retrieved very easily. For example, if a guest is having a shower in a guest room, they can automatically detect how much water they've used during the duration. Also take into account the average shower consumption is between 3 and 5 minutes. If it goes by over that, then automatically an IoT sensor can send data not only to the hotel for general information, but also to the guest himself. So on the left-hand side, there are a number of icons. Each of these icons demonstrate a sensor of some sort of value. So let's take into account lighting. Today, majority of the hotels are using LED lighting as opposed to using halogen bulbs. Halogen bulbs were using between 80 and 100 watts. But today, LED lighting uses between 2 and 7 watts, depending on the area and the size of the environment. Again, when LED lighting is used, potentially you could have motion sensors connected to that. So when a door is opened, it's occupied. It not only has to use 100% of the LED lighting, it can use it 75%, depending on the ambient outside and into the environment itself. You could have HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and cooling. So in areas where there is no occupancy, it doesn't need to have full occupancy of air conditioning. It can be reduced to 20% or even 10%, just to have a comfort factor. Again, manufacturers of AI, CCTV manufacturers, what are they doing? Before they were just recording digital footage. Today, manufacturers now are implementing IoT as well as in line with AI to do people counting. For example, they'll be using thermal imaging, face recognition. So you can see now IoT has many areas of information that can be retrieved quite quickly. For example, gas meters. Normally, hotels will have analog gas meters, which will have to be manually read. By implementing a smart IoT sensor, not only that it can detect how much gas usage there is, but also detect leakages, if any, whatsoever. So again, there are values of having these additional devices into these type of environments. So there are 4 layers of Internet of Things. On the right-hand side, I put a diagram together. So the first layer of the IoT is the actual physical device. This could be a proximity sensor, water sensor, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, RFID sensors. So these are physical devices that have electronics built into them. They could be battery, they could be PoE, LAN connected, or Wi-Fi. The second layer, which is the actual network transport layer, which could be defined as a network switch that uses Wi-Fi, LoRa, Zigbee, LTE. There are many protocols that IoT devices can use. Also, there are gateways that not only use one layer or protocol, they can manage various different types of application layers as well at the same time. Moving on to the third layer, which is really this cloud, the storage, and the analytics. So this is the advanced layer where this does all the analyzing, finding out what data it needs to keep, what data it needs to process. The fourth layer comes into the presentation layer where the end user or the management team, they will use themselves. From that point, they can actually understand how much energy is used, how much water is used, how much gas is used. It could be lighting, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be CCTV, analytics, and so on. So if I take into account these are the 4 layers, wrapped around there's an ecosystem that has to be implemented to control IoT, taking into account security. These devices also need to be implemented in such areas where it could be a separate network, a VLAN, separate SSID. It needs to be taken into account that it needs to be positioned that nobody can access these devices. What are other hotels doing in IoT and the benefits? I've listed a number of hotels. These are depending on 4-star, 5-star hotels. Hilton Hotels introduced connected rooms where a guest is able to control lighting from a single smart device, control temperature, use their entertainment system, and use voice commands. So all of these now devices are connected from a single platform, and the end user as a guest, they are able to control these from one platform, from one device. Intercontinental Hotel Group, they have developed IoT sensors for energy management systems, as I've mentioned before, lighting control, heating, ventilation, and so on. Marriott Hotels have implemented mobile keys. During the COVID pandemic, there were lots of restrictions of what you can touch and so on. Today, there are systems out in the market where you have an app, you take your smart device to the door lock, and it will automatically open that with security information built into that. Starwood Hotels, they're analyzing IoT data, using that information for guest experiences, utilizing guest profiles, what type of profile guests are coming into their environment. So they can build some information around that, how many times a guest has gone into the restaurant, how many times they've used room services, and so on. The Peninsula Hotel, they use RFID. This is quite a massive achievement within the hospitality sector, whereby there's a lot of linen, for example, bed sheets, pillowcases, and so on. Now they have RFID tags sewn into these materials. So from the point of the housekeeper changes garments and so on, bed sheets, from the point it's taken out to the building, the RFID sensors can actually calculate how many bed sheets have gone out and how many bed sheets have gone out. Also, it helps the staff to have stock available on floors, whereas they were using a manual system. Wynn Las Vegas guest rooms are now equipped with Amazon ecosystems, so they are using voice recognition to actually make things happen. So, for example, turn on lights, turn on blinds, open, close blinds, and so on. Yotel, another tech-forward hotel, they use robots for room services So for example, if a guest orders any, so for example, it could be room service amenities or so on. So they would use a robot to come up to do that. So you can see IoT now is moving quite rapidly. So the substantial guest, what are they looking for? We need to know and take into account the environmental, what is happening around the world today about global usage. As people are more and more aware, they are looking at sustainable hotel guests and making the effort and making it ethical and sustainable choices when they travel now. There are several factors these guests are considering when considering a sustainable hotel: eco-friendly, amenities, waste management, and transparency, what the actual hotel is doing as a day-to-day operation. Guests are looking at green certificates nowadays to see what kind of actions each hotel is doing, as opposed to just walking in and just using their services. Guests prefer hotels that prioritize energy saving measures, such as energy sufficiency, lighting, heating, cooling systems, water conservation. Sustainable guests appreciate hotels implementing water technologies such as low flow shower heads, facets, and toilets, and so on. Again, sustainable building designs, not only when using a day-to-day operation, manufacturers are looking at environmental conscious guests, appreciate hotels with eco-friendly building designs. Also, hotels and other manufacturers are looking at partnerships where they can present green to give this in marketing information to make the guests feel more comfortable. So let's look at the IoT guest room. The guest room management system is a commonly used application within smart hotels. More and more hotels are using this application. So to understand guest profiles, to understand what is connected, and to be connected at the same time. This provides a convenience and enhances hotel operators to control by providing efficiency and intelligent management. So if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side, we have the guest room devices. For example, when a guest checks in, they don't have to wait into long queues. They have the app. So what they can do is once they come into the hotel, they'll be given the room number. The room number leads to the door lock. So once they come to the door lock, within the app, they will present the BLE door access. So once that is triggered, the door will open automatically. From that same app, they are able to control the smart lighting, the smart blinds, able to control temperature. On the second box, guest room services. Now, from the same app, you are able to book in your smart laundry. If you want any concierge services, room services. The back end of this, the hotel interconnected services, which are the physical devices. These devices are now connected onto the network switch over firewalls. So these are the nuts and bolts of the guest room network management systems. A fine example of an IoT temperature sensor, whereas before, a lot of restaurants and back of house chefs, they use fridges for their food storage. In some cases, the typical chef will leave the door open. This will be wide open. This will relate to the temperature dropping. There will be alarm within the freezer whatsoever. But if nobody hears that, or they're not near to a proximity, automatically the temperature will drop. So nowadays you can have IoT sensors within the fridge itself. So from the point that the door is open, it will trigger an alarm to the local person working in that area. That alarm could be either via a network message, it could be an email, or just a text message whatsoever. If that door is left for a certain period, automatically it will go to the next person. So now you can see how IoT is being used and how it is used to a point where the data could be presented. Also, from the point of any failure of a fridge, the alarm could be sent to the smart device, again, to trigger, even not to actually to the smart device, actually to the manufacturer level or to the engineering level, to notify them that there is a failure of some sort of device. There are also security challenges that come with IoT. The physical security risks, for example, smart locks, which I've talked about, that are part of the IoT and can reduce physical security. Without proper security measures in place, hackers could potentially gain unauthorized access and break into the room. Lack of standardization, the lack of universal security standards out there in the market today. lead to inconsistent security practice, varying levels of vulnerability across different devices and manufacturers. Third-party integrations, system integrators have different ways of working, various protocols in place. Also, as mentioned, you can have Zigbee, you have LoRa also. So also those need to take into account how IoT devices are presented and installed. Compliances, hotels must comply with various data protection and privacy regulations, GDPR, as local data protection laws. Hotels need to be proactive when installing security by conducting risk assessments and vulnerability testing, implementing authentication encryption, and regular updating patches. For example, if passwords are not changed, firmwares are not updated, this will also lead into some sorts of impacts. The conclusion, the hotels that decide to use IoT have to meet industry standards and follow protocols. IoT raises ethical, privacy, confidentiality, and safety concerns. These must be studied and addressed like any other technology. Smart technologies can improve hospitality performance throughout continuous monitoring, task automation, and client preference modifications. The hotel industry is revolutionized by IoT, resulting into emergency of smart hotels. Various studies are conducted to identify the challenges and transformation, and future research assesses its impact on measuring outcomes. The authors of this paper have concluded that the hotel industry has significant potential to increase efficiency and effectiveness with IoT. However, challenges need to be addressed. Thank you.